Anything is possible. It started with a dream. Our passion made a difference and built a family. We've grown.
Hello, it's Libby from libbystamps.com. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator in Australia, and today I just thought I'd bring you this video on how to make an easel card. Now this card I've made using the new In Color Purple Posy, and I've used the cardstock and the ink, but I've used a retiring stamp set and Thinlet dies. So I've used Petal Palette, I've used the rose, and I've used the thank you, and I've used the Thinlet die to make the sentiment at the bottom. Alright, so the next one we're going to do, and what I've done here is I've just embossed it and then watercoloured over it, and I've used a clear ink Stella brush to colour the roses in, and I've done some splotching. I don't know if you can see that, but we'll do that during the video. And I've added another piece of watercolour paper down here. So we'll get started on the next one that I'm going to make, and I'm making it using the new In Color called Rococo Rose. So I'll put this to one side. Or Rococo Rose. Not sure how you're supposed to say it, but it's a beautiful colour. So I have a piece of thick Whisper White, 10.5 centimetres by 29 centimetres. And I'll have all the measurements on my blog. So we're going to score it in half at 14.85. Now, if you have a look at your trimmer, you've got 15, and then one little check mark before that is 0.9, and the one before that's 0.8. So just go in between them and get your 14.85. And we're going to score that there. Then I'm going to flip the card, and we're going to score it at 7.4 sort of 25. It's sort of in half, so 7.4 is there, and I'm just going to go in the middle, so of 7.5 and 7.4, and just do a rough one and score it there. So that's all the scoring we need to do. Then I'll bring in my bone folder and we'll just burnish those score lines, and because it's on thick Whisper White, it's sturdy, but the score lines need to be burnished well for it to stand properly. So you can see that that's about roughly in half. If I close that over, it's roughly in half. Alright, so that's the aperture, if you like, of our card. Alright, and then I have a piece of Rococo Rose, which is 10 centimetres by 14.4 centimetres, and another piece of thick Whisper White, which is 9.5 centimetres by 13.9 centimetres. And that's going to form our stand-up part of our card, like that. Alright, so I'm not going to put those together yet because we're going to do some stamping. And this time I'm using Falling Flowers. I'm using some new product, but I'm using some retiring product as well. And this one has got a beautiful leafy sort of design, which I'll take out of its pack, and I'm going to pop this piece of Whisper White on there, and I want it to go about there. Alright, so I'll add that to my plate. Now I have another piece of Whisper White which measures, watercolour paper, which measures 10.5 by 3.1 centimetres. Now I'm going to put that about there and put my magnet on the bottom of it. That should work nicely. Alright, then I've got some post-it note. Love this stuff on a roll. Saves lots of time and trouble. Alright, so I'm just going to put that down there, like that. Close my stamp over again and just check that that's all covered. It is. Alright, so then I'm going to bring in my Versamark ink and I'm going to ink up my stamp. Now you want it to ink up fairly well and then stamp down. Give it a good hard press to make sure you get all the image on the watercolour paper. And then I'm going to remove the watercolour paper. We'll do something with that in a minute. We'll emboss it. And I'm going to take off my post-it note. And then with my Simply Chamois, just going to clean any remaining Versamark off that stamp like that. I have a dirty side and a clean side. The clean side is for me to go back later and just make sure I've got all the little bits. And this time I'm going to ink it up in Rococo Rose. Beautiful colour. Alright, and I don't have the re-inkers to make little daubers yet, so little stamp spots. But I will be getting those re-inkers in my first order, because then you've got them to do all your different techniques. Alright, and then I'm just going to close that over. And I've got my stamp done. Just check that it's nicely done. Beautiful. Alright, clean it off. Take that out. We'll go ahead and make our card. So what I'm going to do is actually adhere this to the front of the card. Just like that. And I'm going to bring in my clear wink of Stella. Put a little bit of ink on a block. As I said, I don't have the re-inkers yet. And I'm just going to colour with the clear wink of Stella some of these little baubles. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see them all, but that'll do. Alright, so, and then with my aqua painter, I'm just going to squeeze some water down into the barrel so that the brush end is nice and wet. I'm going to pick up a little bit of ink and just splatter it over with my finger. This is a good technique, but you do tend to get a bit of ink everywhere. So I'm going to put that to one side for the moment and bring in my white embossing powder, and we're just going to sprinkle that over our watercolour paper, and there's going to be a bit of noise in a minute while I use my heat tool. Now if you haven't got a heat tool or Stampin' Up heat tool, it's well worth the investment. It's got 2 heat settings, and one's good for things like acetate or you know, things you don't want to heat up too much. So, and then we'll just heat set this. I'm going to bring my aqua painter in again, pick up some colour. Make sure your brush is sort of fairly wet because you want to be able to watercolour. And I'm hoping this one's going to be, and it is, more vivid, I suppose, than the purple one I did, which was out of Purple Posy, I think it is. Bit more water. And it doesn't matter what your watercoloring's like, just as long as you've had a bit of a go. I think we need a bit more colour in the middle here. Turn it around. Whoops. And a bit more here. And some more ink on that. So if you can't squeeze your ink pad, just use one of your acrylic blocks to get some ink. Alright, now while that's drying, I do have another piece of watercolour paper, which is 10.5 by 2.5 centimetres, and I'm just going to watercolour that. See the difference when you've got a fair bit of water in your brush, different colours, different tones of the same colour, and that'll do. Alright, now on the front of this piece, so this is going to be the front where you have your sentiment and that other piece of watercolour paper. I'm just going to do some more ink splatters. Not doing this very well today. Alright, let's see how this goes. That's better. Alright, might add a few more to this one. Alright, that'll do. Alright, so that's our front piece. Now, I need to dry this off, both these bits off, so just use the heat tool for a minute. There we go. Now, I just need some liquid glue, and I'm going to marry up the two stamps that I've done. Once you've got your cardstock cut, this doesn't really take that much time. So that should marry up about there. There we go. How easy was that? Alright, so that's the front done, and I'm just going to add this bit to the bottom of the card. So you don't add anything here yet, so we're adding this here. Now, I've already stamped the sentiment and die cut it from the petal palette. And that other colour I was using was called Purple Posy. So I've already cut this from the petal palette and bundle. So I've cut another one and just cut it in half. And I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to it. And I'll try and marry up the two corners. So each shape has got corners, so I've married up the corner with the point of that part on both sides. That way I know that this bottom bit's going to be even. And then I'll do the same for the top, but I've turned it around. It's just easier for me with the video to do it upside down. So I'll marry those corners up again. Right, and then I have a piece of Stampin' Dimensionals. I'm just using the end of my packet. So I'm just going to add that there and take the backing off. And I'm adding that down here in about the middle, just like that. Then I'm going to close this over, and my card is going to fit roughly like that. So I flip it over and with a pencil lift it up a tiny bit, just put a mark where I think the glue can go to. You're not going to see that mark, so I find it's just helpful to put the glue on where it should go. I do like my multi-purpose glue, it gives me wriggle room. Right, I'll bring my card back in, close it over, and I'm going to put that about there, and then just let that dry for a minute. And we've got our two cards, our easel cards. I think I'm really quite liking this Rococo Rose. Alright, so there are two easel cards. So I hope you enjoyed that quick video, and they are easy to do. And I'll put all the measurements below the video on my blog post. Alright, thanks so much for stopping by.
Everybody
Bye
plays
for
a
now.
part in doing what we love.